Turning our attention now to West Africa, where Ghana is on the risk of a government shutdown as an impasse in the country's parliament continues. Now, reports suggest that Ghana's parliament is very unlikely to pass a provisional budget ahead of the December 7th presidential and general elections, potentially risking an unprecedented government shutdown early next year. Now, generally, the country passes a provisional budget in November during election years to cover the gap until the next president takes office. But if the budget is not passed until the elections, reports say the government might have to cut back on interest payments and funding for the transition. The failure to pass a provisional budget would be the first in over 30 years for Ghana, which is a gold and cocoa producing nation. The Finance Minister, Mohamed Amin Adam, had set November the 15th deadline for presenting the budget, but has still not been able to do it. Now, Ghana's parliament has been on an indefinite break since the 23rd of October over an impasse on which two of the main parties holds the majority in the House. The move was triggered after a controversy erupted over the defection of 4 members of parliament, 2 from the ruling New Patriotic Party, or the NPP, and 1 from the opposition National Democratic Congress, and 1 independent lawmaker. Now, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, took cognizance of the situation and ruled that the 4 seats were vacant according to the Constitution, giving opposition NDC a majority in Parliament. The minority leader in the Parliament from the NDC party supported the Speaker's decision of declaring the 4 seats as vacant. But the change in political dynamics forced the ruling NPP to knock the Supreme Court's doors and question if the Speaker had interpreted the Constitution correctly. Now, the Supreme Court ruled on the 12th of November that the Parliament Speaker's declaration was unconstitutional. But ever since the ruling of the Supreme Court, the Speaker Bagbin has refused requests to recall the Parliament, saying it would interrupt the election campaign. Now, reports suggest that Ghana's labour unions have also been hoping for the Parliament to work on a solution before it begins impacting the workers. There are several loans and bills that need approval in addition to the provisional budget, and Parliament now has just a few weeks before the next president takes over. Now, the West African nation is set to elect a successor to President Nana Akufo-Addo, whose 2-term tenure as the head of state ends in January. In addition to the presidential elections, voters in Ghana also set to elect a new parliament that has 275 members. Now, in December, on the 7th, the elections, former President John Mahama of the opposition NDC party is seen as the main challenger to the vice president of Mahamudu Bawumia, who is the candidate for the ruling NPP. Moreover, 10 other candidates are also running in the elections, and among them, the independent candidates Nana Kwame Bediako and Alan Karametin are expected to take votes from the 2 main candidates. But reports suggest that John Mahama is set to win the elections, as many Ghanaians have been unhappy with the way that the ruling NPP has handled the West African country's worst economic crisis. Mahama, who has a 52% chance of winning, according to opinion polls, had invested heavily in infrastructure during his presidency between 2012 and 2017. Yet some experts suggest that the contest can be a close one between the 2 parties. No party has ever won more than 2 consecutive terms in Ghana's democratic history. But with the elections in just a few days, the West African country, the larger question remains, will the new government be able to run its business normally next year if Parliament fails to pass the provisional budget?